Welcome to the Battlefield Show. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I'm joined by Sammy Boy. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Doing fantastic, ready to chat some Battlefield, and today we're going to be talking about the state of the game in 2021 with this final update, so let's jump right in and chat. This podcast is a production of Uplink Media Group. Uplink is a podcast network dedicated to highlighting the love and experience of gaming and pop culture. Check out our other show, Star Wars Uplink and The Forge, the Halo Infinite podcast, as well as our YouTube channels for even deeper dives into Battlefield, Star Wars, and more. YouTube.com/Uplink podcast and StarWarsUplink.com. Sammy, talk to me, man. Battlefield, what's going on?
Well, we just got the final update for 2021. And yeah, it seems to have fixed pretty much everything that they said. I think one thing that I've heard, I haven't experienced it myself, but I think the loadout bug is still there to some extent. I think they keep they must be fixing certain ways that it happens. And then there's another thing triggering it as well. So
you can't put me down.
Yeah. So it's still there. I think it's much less common now, but it's still unfortunately there. So that's kind of frustrating. But everything else they said that they were working on, I played for, I want to say, nearly 2 hours last night, and yeah, it felt the hit reg felt a little bit better. Still work to be done, but it feels a lot better than it did. A lot of the weapons, the initial recoil has been toned down a lot. Like the AK and the PKP, they had this huge jump. Like the first shot, you'd end up looking in the sky after one bullet. So they've toned those down a little bit, and they feel really good now. Like they're actually a lot more viable. And yeah, pretty much everything other than the loadout bug that they said they were going to fix, they did. So another positive update for me. It's great to see that they've put out. This is now 4 weeks, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
In fact, nearly. Yeah, it hasn't even been out for a month yet, technically. So yeah, they're actually
true.
pumping out.
We got
the
10 more days.
Yeah. So yeah, the state of the game is obviously still lots of work to be done, but from where it launched, all they can do is fix it, and that's all they've done. So I'm happy with the way the game's going at the moment. It's in a good enough state for me personally that I can last a month without an update if they come back in mid.
Don't say stuff like that, Sammy. Stop.
Yeah, but it's good to see where it's going, and yeah, I'm just really excited for next year to get some more updates and fix these final little issues, and then get into season 1 and get the new specialists and hopefully some new maps and stuff down the line. So it's kind of like a pretty decent ending to the year for the game, I think, considering where it was as well. It's actually in a relatively good state at the moment, or compared to where it was, it's in a relatively good state.
Yeah, comparatively, it's in a really good spot.
Yeah,
and I want to just kind of highlight the speed at which they are getting these updates out, because I mean, historically, with our experiences with with DICE in terms of its update schedule, it's really slow. But it seems like they've put some really good things and worked a lot on the back end to make it as easy as possible for them to get quick updates. I mean, even just the fact that at launch they were able to take out or turn off individual items or specialists or weapons, gadgets, whatever you have, all the way down to a specialist's abilities without offering a client-side update. I mean, that in and of itself is just huge, and I'm really glad for that direction that they've pushed things forward.
Yeah, 100%. I remember back to when they had to kill switch Palpatine in Battlefront 2. We needed an actual update for that. And they couldn't actually just kill switch. Like you said, they kind of vaulted Dozer's shield, not actually Dozer as a character, which, to be fair, it made him essentially useless. But if you wanted to play as Dozer, you could still play as Dozer. Whereas with Palpatine, he was gone. Like, he was fully deleted from the game for what felt like about 2 months there. So that kind of shows, obviously different games, but it's the same dev company. It shows the sort of change in direction that they've had, where they can actually do that stuff, straight away and without having to download an update. Because I remember with Palpatine, like they kind of said they were going to kill switch him, and then it was still like 2 weeks until it happened. Whereas this, it was just like they didn't even say it; they just did it and then fixed him in a week. So, like you said, the rate at which the updates are coming is really, really good to see, and I just hope that they keep that up. And then the fact that also DICE kind of have a tendency to fix a bunch of things and then break a bunch of other things, and so far I don't think they really have done that. Like, it doesn't seem like each update is like, oh, they fixed the loadout bug, but now there's this other thing. Like, they kind of have just been fixing things, and everything else is kind of staying the same. So yeah, two really good signs there that hopefully the live service side of things is changing a little bit, and yeah, it's just exciting to head into next year with that knowledge that we don't have to wait 2 months for a basic update anymore. Like, that's hopefully a way of the past.
Yeah, I hope so. And I hope that this break, because this 3.1 update is the last update for 2021. So this is how the game is going to be until they said at some point in early January. And that is, they've messed with our definitions of DICE definitions of timeframes now with these most recent updates, because they said early December and it was literally like December 2nd.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's going to be the case with the new year, if that's going to be how they're picturing it, or if it's what I would assume is it will be about mid-January that we'll get like a next update, or they'll announce that, hey, this is the update coming and we're going to be working on these bugs that we found over the course of that break. And I hope that this break is a good kind of refreshing period, so these poor developers that can that are working nonstop around the clock to get these updates put in place, they get some rest, they get some perspective, and they come back and the game is in a much better situation.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a lot of people in the community that, and this happens with every game, that they get mad at the developers for taking a break. But I'm like you, these guys need a break. They've been crunching the whole year, and probably, it's been made for 3 years, so it's probably been a crunch the whole time. They went through COVID with all that, so I think after releasing a game, they more than deserve, even though it didn't launch that well, they still really deserve a break. So hopefully, like you said, they do take 3 to 4 weeks off and just fully like refresh, and we can start next year with everyone motivated and happy, and that will just affect the game in a better way. If everyone comes back like 2 weeks later, then they're just going to not enjoy what they're doing, and that's going to reflect in the game itself. So hopefully they take a decent break and come back feeling good next year.
Yeah, turn off Twitter for a little bit. Definitely get off of
100%.
Reddit. Don't go to the Red app. Yeah. In terms of this specific update, I think the biggest thing for me, it was that breakthrough change, because it was just not fun to try to capture those points, because it was literally impossible. And even if there were a couple cases on stream where I hopped on and I played, I got up there and I lasted for about 2 seconds before a helicopter of that team came in and just destroyed me.
Yeah,
I made it. Nope, never mind.
It's that was probably, for me too, that was probably the biggest part of the update, because I pretty much main breakthrough, and there's certain maps, especially a map like Orbital, where it feels like a good map, but that middle sector just ruins it. I have still never gotten past that, so I'm kind of excited to experience the other half of the map now, because I think it'll be a lot easier to get through.
Yeah, and in terms of what specifically was there, it was Kaleidoscope, Orbital, and Hourglass all got their rooftop capture objectives moved to the ground. Hallelujah. In one case, it was split into 2 of them. But my gosh, it was so frustrating. And I don't see how they never caught that. Like, how did they never see the issue with a very easily defendable point on top of a building. I mean, obviously, in terms of like, if you're looking at it from a real life perspective, obviously people are going to be going to the top of a building. But in terms of a gameplay perspective, it just does not work.
Yeah, I don't know how. Maybe I have a feeling that like a lot of the developers actually aren't that good at the game, and they kind of like, it's just a bunch of like bots running around.
Sammy's out here roasting them.
Well, I've seen a lot of them play. Like, I remember watching Freeman play once, and like, no disrespect to Freeman, but he's for someone who works on the game. Like, these boys aren't actually that good at their own game. So I feel like because of that, and when I say that, I don't mean they're necessarily bad, but they're not. There's dudes running around in Aussie servers that are like 7 KD players and stuff. So I don't think that many, other than, to be fair, Florian that man's an absolute freak at this game. But
yeah, I don't know how.
Yeah. But yeah, I think when you release it to a bunch of people, that, let's be honest, we're all kind of like just sweating and everyone's trying to do well. I think that probably changes it a little bit, but I still don't know how they didn't see that coming, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's good that they finally changed it, but it was a weird decision to have those. I think the concept was cool. I think it was like fighting over the top of the building was a cool idea. It just didn't really work out that way, and it was never gone.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, add more of those points. Have 3 of those buildings instead of just 1 of those buildings.
Yeah, exactly.
Question for you. Did you watch Tom Henderson's breakdown of the timeline of Battlefield 2042?
I did not.
It is very good, and it is a very detailed look at why there are some of these issues in the game. Specifically, the timeline around implementing the new engine of Frostbite. Apparently, it was supposed to be a 6-month process, and it ended up being 18 months, and took a third of that 3-year development cycle where it was dealing with Frostbite and moving it to the new engine.
Damn.
And they had a lot of the senior people on the Frostbite team and in DICE leave during that period, and either go to new companies or just start new companies. And it was wild to me watching through that. And I highly recommend anybody who has some questions around what game development looks like, what are some of the inside developers were experiencing. There were a number of new hires through 2020 where they really started hitting their stride in terms of they were working on the development of the game itself versus just with the engine. And I think he said like 50 to 60% of the people working on the game at that point were hired in the last year, and their previous experience with development was very slim and were much smaller teams. So they didn't have the experience with the Battlefield franchise, and 2, they didn't have as much experience with developing on a game at this scale. And at some point during 2020, the decision was made to offer specialists instead of classes. They actually had concept art of classes that were going to be in the game, but at some point early 2020 they decided to go against that. And dude, I highly recommend watching it. It's 30 minutes, but I watched the entirety of that thing. Just my jaw was on the floor like, oh my gosh, no wonder this game is as little featured as it is. Apparently the UI team was incredibly over budget as well, and we're missing deadlines for each of the things, and UI was one of the big issues with how the game performed on that, as well as working from home and testing it on the 5 different systems that it was going to be on, because there's the base Xbox One. I mean, there's the base Xbox One, there's the Xbox One S, there's the Xbox One X, and then there's the PS4, the PS4 Pro, the PS4 Slim, and then there's the PC, then there's Xbox Series S, Xbox Series X, and then there's the PS5. So like, and one of the things was they said they would have to rent out other people's systems because the majority of the developers only had one of the consoles, or they didn't even have any of the consoles because they mainly played or developed on PC, and they had PCs of a number of scale, and they were not provided the PCs that they would have as much power. And because of how the builds work, they would have to download the builds daily, which would take hours instead of minutes at the studio. Dude, it is just incredible to see. It's amazing that this game was actually able to come out.
Yeah, now, when you're saying all that, it's like, holy, like, there's kind of two ways to look at that. You can look at it like, this is why it launched the way that it did. But then, yeah, like you said, that's actually ridiculous that they've still put a game out during all of that. Like, all of that on top of just the pandemic. Like, it's ridiculous how they can pull that. I know if I was in charge of those companies, I'd be like, nah, let's just chalk it and move on to the next one.
And that was another thing too, was there was a big portion of DICE that wanted to delay the game even further than just the 1 month, but EA gave them only the 1 month, and they would have liked it to be delayed further.
Yeah.
He said a lot of the developers said it needed at least another year, but the only thing they could get away with was the 1 month, and that most of the issues with the game, including the specialist, was because of EA, not DICE, like we all expect. They wanted to chase the highs of Apex, not let Battlefield stand on its own.
Yeah, none of that surprises me. That's kind of I actually just did a Q&A last week, and I kind of answered a question that was similar to that like, a lot of those type of decisions seem like EA executive decisions, not DICE decisions. And so that's why I'm always pretty lenient towards the actual developers, because these people actually are passionate and they know what they're doing. They just sometimes have no say in what they're doing. Like I'm sure majority of them said, no, I'd rather have a class system. And EA just would have said, no, like, sorry, you're not doing that. And there's nothing they can do. They're owned by EA. So it's a situation where it's your boss telling you, no, you have to do this. And it's like, oh, well, I guess we'll have to do this then. So those type of decisions don't really surprise me that much. And it's unfortunate. And I kind of had a rant about this with the whole Battlefront 3 not happening thing. I really wish the higher-ups actually knew about gaming. I'm sure they're very good businessmen, but they know absolutely fuck all about video games, and it kind of hurts their company when they don't know about games. Because if you know about business and games, you'll make very successful games. But if you know about business and you know nothing about games, you'll probably make your money, but you'll have a very unhappy fan base, and that's kind of what's happening.
You just described EA as a whole business.
Yeah.
Another thing that he mentioned in that video was the comparison of Apex, and how they basically wanted another Apex Legends, but they didn't want to dedicate the amount of work it would require to make it an actually good version of a Battlefield Apex. And they said something that I was not aware of was originally. This is why I love Respawn so much, and I'm super glad Vince Zampella is coming to the team on Battlefield. Is they stand their ground. EA was like, this needs to be a $60 game, and it only needs to have a 1 year support cycle, and then you need to work on another game. And Respawn was like, nah, fam, we're releasing it. We're not. That's why it dropped without any promotion, is because it wasn't a. It wasn't a completely EA sanctioned decision. Obviously, it was approved, but it was more of those like, fine, do whatever you want to over there. We don't really care.
It was just like, accepted, not like backed by EA. That makes a lot of sense as well, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference too between Battlefield or DICE and Respawn. Respawn will stand for their decisions. When Lucasfilm said, "Hey, we want this to be about a bounty hunter," they said, "No, we're making this about lightsabers. So you can either stand back or we won't make a Star Wars game." And they made a Star Wars game.
This is what they need to do, isn't it? Like, they, as good as EA are at making money, they don't make games. They hire companies to make games. So the companies should take a stand and do that. Like, they're in the driver's seat. DICE makes the game. If EA says you need to make this game and DICE just says, well, no, good luck getting someone else to make it, what are they going to do? Just delete Battlefield, or are they going to go, oh, fine, we'll do what you want? Like, they're obviously going to cave to what DICE wants to do.
Yeah, if DICE, a company that's been a part of EA for like 20 years, can't sit down and say, hey, this is a decision that we want to make, while Respawn, who was just acquired by them in the last like 4 years, can be like, screw you, EA, we're making this game.
Yeah. It's a very good, like, this is, a lot of people have had issues. I've seen a lot of comments about the whole Vince Zampella thing and like, oh, he's only going to be able to make hero shooters, blah, blah, blah. He's the guy that, to me, he says he will just do what he wants. Like, he's not going to listen to EA. If they say, you have to do this, I feel like he's the type of guy that will say, look, mate, I know how to make video games. Listen to me, and I'll make you millions of dollars. And that's what Battlefield needs, I think, right now. So the whole thing of bringing him on board, to me, that is perfect. And that's probably what this needs, is someone to just say, no, I'm not doing that, the thing that you want us to do. Look at Apex. They said, like, Respawn said no, and it's now essentially EA's best game. So, and it's making them billions. It's not like it's just good for the fans and it's not making money. It's good for the fans and it's making billions of dollars. So,
and they stuck with it because the first few months of actually, I think it was the first 6 months to a year that Apex was out. It was slowing down, and then they offered the battle pass. They offered an update, and like that's literally what Battlefield needs to do. They need to offer an experience that is core to the fan base, and it is what people want, not what everyone else is doing in the game industry. Because by the time the game comes out, everyone will be doing something differently than what they were doing 3 years ago.
Exactly.
Because you see something like a game that comes out now is going to be very different than a game that comes out 3 years from now, because we have a different perspective and the timelines of game development, which I don't think they should stick with their decision to have a 2-year release cycle for Battlefield, especially with all the issues that they've seen here. Because if this game was on a 2-year game release cycle, it would have been they would only have 4 months of development. Maybe 6 months. Yeah, 6 months.
Yeah, it's that, unless, like I said in the last podcast, that they do it with like, or Ripple Effect is making one game and then DICE makes the next game. If they do it that way, 2 years can work. But if DICE is expected to make a game every 2 years, that will not work. There's no chance that works.
Yeah, I hope that DICE understands, and there was a part in that video that a lot of people were like, DICE honestly isn't even DICE anymore. It's a completely different company. Everyone that was around in those decisions that made Battlefield 4 and 3 and ultimately made what Battlefield 1 ended up becoming are gone. And they're not making decisions like they were previously. And it clearly shows with whether you love it or hate it. I mean, Battlefield 2042 is a very fun experience, but I would question whether or not it is a true Battlefield experience. Definitely Battlefield adjacent, but not in terms of like when people saw Battlefield 2042 in the first place, they expected Battlefield 4 with all of the new good stuff, and it just ended up being a lot of kind of they were definitely nostalgia baiting us with the kind of timeline alongside Battlefield 4, because we all not even EA let us, but we drank the water, but they said, oh hey, look, this is a dinosaur, and you know where this dinosaur is from? It's from Battlefield 4. This game's gonna be like Battlefield 4. But I truly believe this game will end up being a good Battlefield game by the end of its life cycle. I hate the fact that we should have gotten a better Battlefield experience, and it has once again put Battlefield in this weird perspective where people are starting to lose faith in the brand. And when you hear Battlefield, it's not going to be, oh, that game that used to have classes and now has specialists, and they're trying to do all the other game stuff.
Yeah, It's kind of a weird situation because I see it from a few perspectives as also a Call of Duty fan. There's two perspectives you can look at it, that it's not the same type of game that we're used to from like Battlefield 3 and 4. Those were like the peak days of Battlefield.
Yeah.
And sure, it is very different, but if we just remake Battlefield 4 and just call it 2042, for example, and just have a really, really similar game to that, some of the part of the community that are now complaining about that, they would be happy, but a lot of people will just say, oh, this is just the same thing again, just like Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Call of Duty has done essentially no innovation other than Warzone in what?
But
10
hey,
years?
dude, you can destroy doors now.
It's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because you either innovate your game and try and push the boundaries and make it a little bit different and innovate over time, which will piss off a lot of the community, but also a lot of people will really enjoy that. Or you just make the same game every year, and a lot of people will get sick of that and go, oh, it's just the same. Why would I buy this? We all hear that with FIFA and Call of Duty. It's just the same game every year. Why would I bother buying it? So you kind of can't really win, because if they just made Battlefield 4 2.0, it'd be a fun game, but I probably wouldn't be as excited by that, because I've played thousands of hours of Battlefield 4. I'd just go play that instead. So it's kind of like it's just one of those weird situations where you kind of can't win, and it's just
But like, I think the main issue with the decisions made and the issues with Battlefield 2042 is not the fact that it's innovating. It's the fact that it's innovating for the wrong reasons. Because let's just say they decided specialists were a good reason because it improved the gameplay. I think we'd all be all about it. But it was not a place. It was put in because they wanted to be Apex, not because it fits the gameplay style of Battlefield. And I think that's the disconnect here. Is like they aren't making decisions for Battlefield players, because if they were making decisions for Battlefield players, maybe they would have specialists, but they would be structured in a way that they're implemented in the class system. Maybe this specific character in this class has this ability, but you have very similar play style with these two other specialists. Maybe instead of like a healing gun, you have a healing package, but something along those lines. But they just went full hero shooter.
Yeah, I think their issue with the specialist system was they kind of went all in on it. They should have done like a middle ground for this one, and then if they want to do the specialist for the next game, then it would have been a bit more accepted, because they kind of just went from classes straight to specialists. That was probably where that went wrong. If they had have done what we keep saying, where it's like the specialists but they're locked behind the classes kind of thing, I think that would have been accepted a lot more, and then that would have like gotten us prepared for the hero shooter like element to sort of take place. So I don't think necessarily their ideas and stuff around this game are wrong. I just think a lot of the execution just hasn't worked. I think the idea behind the specialist system is great. I genuinely think like opening up the classes and allowing a bit more customization while still having a role to play. Like if you're playing as Falk, you can choose to be a one-man army and have your rocket launcher and your Surette pistol, but that's going to make you like not as focused on support. Or you can play support, like only support, and use your ammo crate and your health. And like having that in the game is kind of like, I think the idea behind it is really good. I think it's a lot of the stuff with this game is just the execution. Like we were saying with the rooftop objectives, on paper that's a sick idea, having everyone fighting over the top of a tower. Like it kind of worked a bit in Siege of Shanghai, but the execution of 128 players fighting over one rooftop, that just didn't really work the way that they probably intended it to. So it's kind of, I think, and that probably comes down a lot to the fact that, like you said, a lot of these are new developers and stuff like that. They probably have a lot of great ideas that they always say, with companies, it's good to get some young minds in there to get some fresh ideas, and the ideas are great, but it's just the execution, because they need that
senior experience.
Yeah, exactly. They're not quite as
especially
experience
with
to
map
putting
design.
that into a game as they are about thinking of it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I have been having so much. I want to reiterate, I love this game and I'm having a fun time, and I'm really happy with the decisions that they're making and the speed at which they're making those decisions and adding them in the game. But I think there's just some key problems with it. One thing that I hate, and I've had this thought, but I couldn't really cement it very well. But I was watching Level Cap's review of Battlefield 2042, and he's been having some really good kind of details and discussions on the points around Battlefield 2042. And he was like, come on, guys. DICE, whoever is the map designer person at DICE, you may be a wonderful human being, but you're not making really good maps. Like flat areas with very little coverage, like why do you hate coverage, DICE? Please give us stuff to hide behind. It's flat with some big buildings every now and then. But like when you think about the time frame of Battlefield, and you think about the setting of Battlefield 2042, like it offers so much unique experiences. Like I would have loved like a grungy cyberpunk-esque world where there's so much coverage, and there's like shop fronts that have been pillaged so you can go inside of them. They're empty. Like there's so many different things, but it's just like, okay, nope, open space, big tower, guys are good. And I think that's the problem with like the vehicles and the infantry play. Like they're two separate games. For people that love Battlefields for its infantry, it's super hard. For people that love Battlefield for its vehicles, it's also super hard just because of how many players there are. 128 players does not scale up in the same way as like if you just double everything.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it works for Breakthrough because it's just chaos, and I think it should nearly be a separate mode than like I think 64 players works, and I think 128 players should be there like the equivalent of Call of Duty does like Ground War, where they have bigger player counts.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works.
They have the one game mode that has 128 players, but all the other ones are like, okay, we're going to scale it back. I mentioned this because I want to talk about Rush, which...
Dude, Rush is absolutely amazing. Love it.
Like the best addition to Battlefield 2042 so far.
Absolutely. It's objectively the best game mode. I don't care what anyone says. It's so much better balanced. Whether you like it or dislike it, that's subjective. It is objectively the most balanced, smooth operating game mode in the entire game. No doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so good. And we were talking about this on your stream yesterday about the biggest problem that Portal has is the fact that DICE can so easily say, well, we don't have to add it in All Out Warfare because it's in Portal.
Mm.
That is the hardest thing for me, because like I have been greatly enjoying Rush. The only problem is I have this bug where it won't actually switch sides where I'm attacking and defending. Like if I spawn in and I'm defending, I'm going to play defending the entire time that I play the game mode. So I don't know what's going on with that. If it's just a bug or if it's intentional. Again,
it would almost help if they had like actual persistent servers, wouldn't it? Where it actually is in rotation. Because I think that's the issue. It loads you into a game and then the game ends and then it kicks you and puts you in a new game. And if it just kept us all in the same lobby, like every single shooter has ever done, then that would...
Dude, you're speaking craziness right now, okay? Calm down, you whippersnapper.
We did mention this on the stream yesterday, that for me, that is the single flaw with Portal, is that it doesn't, it's just not set up fully to where I think they think it's better than it is currently, because Portal is amazing. What you can do in Portal is just ridiculous, but I'm not going to sit there for an hour after I've made a server and hope it fills up. That's not what I want to do with my afternoon. I want to join a game instantly and have people in the game. And that is currently impossible with Portal, other than the official servers are a bit more populated. But if I want to make an infected mode myself, it sounds great that I can do that, but I'm not sitting there for an hour to do that. Like, that's just not how it should work.
What I don't understand, especially like looking at Darko, who's been making some fantastic modes in Battlefield 2042 Portal, great. But like the watching him put open this thing and say, "Oh, hey, I can't hop on for long." But if someone stays on, it will stay on. It's like, do you not see the issue with this? Like, you're one of the developers. You're running into this issue that we all are facing, and we're all like, "Hey, this is an issue." And and I don't think they've mentioned anything about changing it to where like, "Hey, just let us, even if it's rented, let us rent the server so it stays up," or just give us an opportunity to be like, "Hey." Or just say these modes are always going to be up and we're going to have this rotation and it's going to be constantly, it's going to stay up. Give people the option to tick that and pay $2 a month, $3 a month, $5 a month. Who cares how much money it is?
Yeah. I don't think it, like, I wonder if they've removed rental servers because it's like, it costs money and they don't want that, like, bad microtransaction.
I don't see how
thing,
though.
like,
I can still go to Battlefield 3 and rent a server.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, rental servers to me are one of the coolest ideas ever. The fact that I can pay money to have my own server, that is sick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they haven't. That's not a permanent thing every Battlefield. I just don't get it. I know it costs. The thing with it is that apparently it costs, like, on their end, it costs like hundreds of dollars a year for like one server. I would literally right now pay $500 to rent a server for a year. Wouldn't even think about it. I would do that straight away because that means that I can set up a server however I want, and I don't need to be there, like, babysitting the server. I can just set it up and go, okay, we all want, but not that we can do this yet, but eventually we'll be able to do like 2042, but with classes. And I can make that and just have it permanent. And everyone, that's how like communities form, because people go, oh, like, okay, this is a really fun server. I'm going to save that to my favorites. And that's the one that I go and play. And then you see the same people. People get talking in the chat and they go, oh, join the Discord. That's where we all hang out. And that's how communities form. That's why Battlefield 4 is still so heavily played, because it had such a good community.
Yeah, and it also stops one of the biggest issues with Battlefield Portal is the fact that there may be 50 of the same mode.
Yeah.
If you have that level of like, if you know that there is going to be someone who has paid for Gunmaster and it's going to be up either every month or for the entire year, if you know that, you're going to be less likely to make your own server because, oh, hey, this other person already did so. Okay, perfect.
Exactly. And it's for me, that's the thing that I really hope that ends up getting added. I don't think it's not like an absolute necessity right now because the game's still so populated that it's like, it doesn't really matter. But in 2 years from now, if that isn't doable, all the work they put into Portal, it won't matter. Because if I load up the game and there's barely a player base, and I log in, like I check Portal, and there's just like 3 lobbies that all have 2 out of 60 players, then I'm just gonna go play another game. Like, I'm not waiting. I'm not doing that. Whereas if I can rent a server, people will always see that server, and there's always gonna be people in it. It's the same way the Battlefield 4 it currently is. Like, there's always people in those servers because people know they're up, so they don't log onto the game going, oh geez, I hope I can find a game. They know that there's going to be a game there. And so, in a few years from now, if that's not implemented, like, Portal was essentially, I don't want to say it was a waste, but it's not going to live as long as they probably wanted it to be. Like, I think they wanted Portal to be the new Battlefield 4, where it's just lasts for like 10 years, and it just won't. It won't. Maybe in America where there's heaps of players, but I know in Australia that it just won't happen, and there's so many other countries where that's just the same sort of situation.
Yeah. I really hope at some point too they adjust that front page where you can add more of those into the rotation for like those specific maps or those modes. Like Battlefield 2042 Rush should be in the main game, but if they are persistent that it should not be in the main game and it's going to be in Portal all the time, have it there literally all of the time. Put it there and then just add another row. Say, okay, each of these are going to be smaller, but instead of 4, we're going to have 8. And 4 of those are going to be constantly there because there are their core experiences: Battlefield 2042 Rush, maybe there's a team deathmatch one, and maybe there's a gun master one. Like those kind of core experiences into the game.
Yeah, I don't know why, and we were saying this on the stream yesterday too. I don't know why Rush has now become a limited time mode. It's literally like the backbone of Battlefield. Like that and Conquest are what I think of when I think of Battlefield, and why Conquest is still supported but Rush isn't. I don't really get it. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's weird that Breakthrough somehow became more important than Rush. I love Breakthrough, but Rush was around before Breakthrough. I don't know why it's like...
Yeah, and given the choice, I play Rush way more than I do Breakthrough.
Yeah, if Rush becomes a permanent mode and it's there from now until the game ends, like I'll end up playing more Rush than Breakthrough. Like I don't know why they have just thought, oh, no one cares about Rush anymore. I don't know where that came from, because it's literally like the most... I'd argue it's more popular than Conquest ever was. Rush, Battlefield 3 Rush was Battlefield 3. Like Conquest was great, but Rush was what so many people played. That was like the addictive, fast-paced mode. And then it just, I don't know what happened, why they have changed their opinion on that, but I really hope that they change it back, because I don't know why.
I mean, just look at how many people are talking about it on Twitter. Like I could open up the app right now and I'll probably see someone like, man, I love Rush. I hope it stays in there forever. I'm fine with limited time modes. I get the reasoning behind them, because they do help with like player retention and Jack Frags' new mode's back this week. It hasn't been here for 2 months. Let's play that this weekend. Like I get that, and it does work, and I want them to do that. But but Rush it should be Gunmaster. It should be it should be Infected. It should not be Rush.
Yeah,
it's like it should. Team Deathmatch shouldn't be a limited time only mode.
Yeah, these are core modes that built the franchise, and it's not even asking much. I'm not asking there to be 15 game modes that are in the core game. Like Conquest, Breakthrough, Rush, Team Deathmatch, done. You don't need anything else. It's weird that they've... I really don't understand that decision, but I know that they have, like, they've clearly shown we know you are really excited by Rush. So I think that I do think it will eventually be added to All Out Warfare, or at least permanent in Portal. But it's just weird that, again, maybe this is just to do with how little time they had to make the game. Maybe it's just one of those things that just wasn't ready or something. But
or there wasn't that kind of core senior person that was like, hey, of these game modes, we're going to do Rush, instead of looking at them at a spreadsheet and said, oh, this is what this game mode offers, this is what this game mode offers. Well, okay, we'll just choose those two. I wonder too if it's a decision that they're making to prioritize I mean, I hope not, but like, yes, bug fixes need to be a thing, but also isn't there like a separate development company called Ripple Effect that put Portal in? So they should be a separate team that has a separate team that's supposed to support Portal. Like they should be separate areas, because DICE didn't have a whole lot to do with Portal. That was Ripple Effect. So these two teams, they should say, hey, divide and conquer. Portal people, you guys focus on getting those bugs fixed. DICE, you guys are focused on this one, and maybe they are doing that. We just haven't seen it yet because it's the holidays.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe it's too early to judge, but you'd think that would be the case, and it's just very confusing the way that that's all worked out. But I think at least the good thing is that they are listening, and they literally, I saw like 10 developers sort of retweet the announcement that Rush was back in again this week, and they kind of all just said like, look, we know, like we hear you. So that's at least a sign they're not just like ignoring us, because that happens a lot with other games, and even probably in the past in DICE games as well. They kind of like hear it and they won't acknowledge it because it doesn't suit their like plans or whatever. And it's good that they're at least, maybe it wasn't in their initial plans to have Rush in All Out Warfare, but at least they're kind of showing like, okay, well, you all clearly love it, so it might take another 3 to 6 months to put it in there, but we'll look into that. So at least that's the way that it seems to be going, which is, I guess, all we can ask for at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. Kind of closing on this thought is this. While it may not be the same dice that we're used to, and they're making some questionable decisions, at least they are listening to the fan base in a way that we have yet to see them really do so in such a level. We're getting a level of back and forth feedback that honestly should have been involved with the betas and the alphas for sure. Like, I mean, I think Battlefield 1 had 6 different alphas and 5 betas, and it came out to be a very robust experience. And this game had 1 alpha and 1 beta, and the beta was a couple weeks before launch. So it was like we're now in the phase where we're having this discussion, we're having this back and forth, and ultimately we will get to a point where this game is fantastic, and we get to a place where we can start complaining about the specifics, the little tiny things. Okay, hey, the battle pass has this thing, it should definitely have this other thing, instead of like, you may need to look into a leaderboard or have a way to identify people with ammo and health and people coming to revive you, and the UI changes. It's like, okay, there's a majority of stuff that needs to be adjusted now, versus to the point where we can start complaining about skins, because we're not there yet. There's a lot more that needs to be fixed before they talk about skins. I think that ultimately comes down to the point of like people having that backlash of those league skins, or those skins that got announced a little too early. Was we're all like, hey, this game needs work. Obviously they're separate teams, but in terms of like the layperson who just bought this game in Christmas and is like, what's going on?
It's you pretty much nailed it on the head there. I think there's still so much work to be done. A lot of the little features we're all wanting at the moment are probably still, we're kind of, I think a lot of us are like seeing ahead, because we're like, I think you and I kind of feel similar that the state of the game isn't perfect, but we can see the direction. Like, we have a bit of foresight to like, okay, in 3 months, this will be a really, like, it's going to be, so many of these issues are going to be fixed. So we're kind of actually thinking a bit further ahead than that, than like, let's add in rental servers and stuff. Those are not, right now, that's not a priority. Like, they need to get the game working first. So it's one of those weird situations where it's like, I think we're all even, thinking a little bit too far ahead at times. And it's probably frustrating as a developer you're getting like 1 million complaints, half of which are, useful right now, but half of those complaints are like, can we just fix this first before you start complaining about something a year down the track, kind of thing. So I definitely couldn't be a developer. I don't think I'd be able to handle all the criticism that, we as fans, we all think we know everything, and the developers must see half the we say and just be like, what the hell are you even talking about? That makes no sense. So I'm definitely not envious of that side of the job for sure.
Definitely right there with you, especially like, again, we've had this discussion before, but the kind of toxic fact of people using their personal Twitter accounts to share official news or have that official discussion. I mean, it should be in a different aspect, because you quickly open the door for people to easily give you death threats. I mean, you're in such such a different state in 2021 for game development. Like, there is this blurring of the lines between company and individual, developer and studio, and it's very difficult, and I know it's for sure frustrating for the developers to be like in the front lines of battle with people who have been locked indoors forever, and the only joy that they're finding is this game. So obviously they're going to nitpick it, and if you do affect that game in a negative way that they perceive, they're going to backlash into it. And it's just this, it's really frustrating on both sides, because the developer does not deserve that, but the game is in a place where like there needs to be a separation between these two systems, but it's just not there, and I don't think it's going to get there either.
Yeah, that's spot on, and that's a good point too, that like kind of no one's in the wrong. Like, the fans have every right to complain, not so much like the death threats. That's obviously like,
nobody has that
too far.
Right.
Obviously, don't be doing that. That's just dumb. But everyone has the right to be like annoyed with how it's launched and stuff, but then also, yeah, the developers necessarily aren't in the wrong in terms of you shouldn't be complaining to them specifically. Like they're just like, oh, we're trying to do the thing, and
they're fans of the series just as we are.
Yeah, they're whinging to like a UI developer about fixing the skins, and it's like, just they don't all work on every aspect of the game. We just need to know, and that's part of it. Is like we do, but a lot of the player base, they don't know who does what. Like we know that Darko, he's one of the UI guys. We know not to talk about skins to him because he doesn't work on that. But some random fan, they just see, oh, this is a game developer, he must do everything. So let's just berate this guy about like that he doesn't even work on, kind of thing. So
yeah,
that's the issue with them having a lot of communication through their personal accounts, is that it's kind of just setting them up to get abused when they shouldn't need to do that. They shouldn't need to be putting themselves out there to communicate, because that should be coming through the official channels. Where if someone abuses the EA account, like, who really cares? Because I know there are people behind it, but they're not abusing that specific person. They're just
they're attacking EA as a whole instead of like, hey, you individual person, I know you're sitting on your couch right now looking at me on Twitter. You. Like, there's a difference.
And that's, we've said it a million times, that's something that I hope it goes that way, but I just don't know if it will, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, but I'm really, again, I just want to hammer down this point. I'm really excited for the future of this game. And I think it will get to the place where we look back on it and be like, oh man, that launch was rough, but hey, we've got Rush and All Out Warfare now, so this is great.
I do think that it will be, like, I really do, maybe I'm just naive, I don't know, but I do think this will be a Battlefield 4, where it launched so bad and everyone was like, oh wow, this is terrible. And now we look back, like, I think in 10 years we'll look back at this game as like, what a game that was. And that's what's keeping me, I'm having fun as it is, but also knowing that that's probably, there's a good chance of that. It's not guaranteed, but there's a good chance. Even people do that with Battlefield 5. It's literally the last game in the franchise and it was hated. Like, so many people hate that game. And already now it's like, oh man, Battlefield 5 is such a good game. So even if this game doesn't turn out to be the best Battlefield, I know in 5 years I'm going to end up looking back with such fond memories, and that's kind of what's exciting about the game, is that I know it's just going to get better over time. And I'm still enjoying it at the moment. So it's not like I'm forcing myself to play it because the future will be good. I'm actually just having fun at the moment as well.
Yeah, and again, you're doing the Lord's work, man. You and the Surrett pistol are just rocking it out. I wish more people played Battlefield like you play Battlefield. I had a teammate literally 5 meters from my dead body walked over me and just kept on going as I'm like crying out, please.
I've done it this week. I think it goes up this week. Yeah, I've got a video of like 10 things about Battlefield that you didn't know, and the 10th one is me just taking the piss, saying there is actually a revive function in Battlefield, and that you can actually revive your teammates, and it's this. I like sell it as this crazy like hidden secret in the game, because that's how it feels to me, man. I'm down. There's like 6 medics around me, and I'm just sitting there like safe as. Can you please revive me? I'm just in, like, literally a meter away from you and I'm safe. And these people are just like, nope, I'm just going to go shoot someone and die. And that's pretty much the whole game for them.
Yep, it's rough, man. It's rough. But I do appreciate it, and I like to call it out when I see someone that is actually using this very little-known feature called the revive, especially if you are Maria Falk. It is very quick to revive people. Yep. And even if you're not Maria, it is still quite quick to revive people.
Yep. I think that that's just how it goes, though. We've been saying this for 10 years. Like, I remember in Battlefield 3 it was the same. You just be like, why aren't you reviving me? Please help me.
Yeah. If you're, oh man, I just had an idea. Could you imagine if they like adjusted it to where if you are down, if you are by a downed enemy, the first, like you have to actually press a button to not revive someone and you'll just go into the animation.
That would be pretty funny. They should do that. If you just run anywhere near someone who's down, you just automatically revive them, and you have to press a button to stop it.
Yeah. People will be so pissed, but I would love it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Battlefield Show. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, let us know. If you didn't, let us know too. As always, we'd like to thank you for listening. If you would like to leave a review, we would greatly appreciate it. It helps the show out a bunch. And I'd like to thank Ethan Clark for the thumbnail. We'll all see you again on the battlefield.